The girl woke before light every morning because stillness was safer than sound. She learned the rhythm of the land by listening to what others ignored, the shift of guards, the call of distant wolves, the way hunger sharpened thought instead of dulling it. She slept near the outer sheds where broken tools were stored because no one cared to guard what was already discarded. The ground was cold but familiar, and she wrapped herself in patience, the way others wrapped themselves in cloth. Her days were shaped by work that never earned a name, carrying water for those who would not look at her, cleaning scraps left behind by feasts she was never allowed to approach. She moved quickly, learned where eyes turned away, learned which paths were invisible because everyone assumed no one would dare walk them. People spoke around her, not to her. They talked of power, of bloodlines, of loyalty, of fear. She absorbed it all quietly, storing knowledge like food for a winter she did not know was coming. She had learned early that crying changed nothing, and anger only drew attention. So she mastered stillness, a kind of strength that lived under her skin. Her body was thin, but her presence was steady, and when she stood she did not shrink, even when others tried to make her. Sometimes at night she watched the pack from a distance, fires burning, laughter rising, weapons gleaming. She did not envy them, she studied them, wondered how people who had everything could still be afraid. The war beast was a story whispered after dark, a shadow that moved when commanded, a creature stripped of choice and filled with violence. She listened when others spoke of it, felt a strange pull she could not explain, like a thread drawn tight between unseen hands. On the morning everything changed. She felt it before anyone called her name. The air pressed heavy against her chest. The land itself seemed to wait. She paused mid-step, water sloshing against the rim of a cracked bucket, and for the first time she wondered if being invisible would be enough. She did not know why fate noticed her that day. She only knew that something had already begun moving toward her long before she ever stepped into the circle of Wolfsta. Alpha King was not born into mercy, he was raised in challenge and blood where strength decided worth and hesitation meant death. His rule was built on victories that left scars across his land, and his name carried weight because it had never been questioned. The war beast was taken young from a battlefield, still breathing, still fighting. It was shaped by command, beaten into obedience, until instinct bent to order. The pack was told the beast existed only as a weapon, a living extension of the Alpha King. Well, no one knew where the beast slept or how it was fed, only that when it appeared destruction followed and silence remained after. Warriors boasted of battles but went quiet when its name surfaced because even power feared what it could not control. The Alpha King never touched the beast unless command required it. He did not speak to it beyond necessity, and never met its eyes. It was safer that way, easier to believe. It was hollow inside, yet there were moments when the Alpha King watched it from a distance, sensing something unresolved in its stillness, a pause too long, a gaze that lingered longer than training allowed. He dismissed these thoughts as weakness because rulers could not afford doubt. The pack believed loyalty was absolute. The beast believed obedience was survival. Neither questioned the lie because questioning meant unraveling everything that kept them standing. On the day of the gathering, the Alpha King felt restless without reason. The land felt tight beneath his feet and the air carried a tension he could not name. He dismissed it as instinct sharpened by rule. He did not know that something older than command was already awake, something that recognized truth before rank, something that would force even a king to witness the limits of his power. The gathering was called under the open sky, where judgment was meant to be seen and remembered. The pack assembled in wide circles, warriors at the front, elders behind them, and watchers filling every shadow. The girl was brought forward without explanation. Hands pushed her from behind, and voices spoke her name as if it were an accusation. She stumbled once, then steadied herself, refusing to fall because falling meant permission. Whispers moved faster than truth. Some said she had crossed sacred ground, others said she had been seen near the inner paths where only bloodied members walked. No one bothered to ask her why she was there. She felt every stare like weight pressing against her skin, yet she stood still, eyes forward, breathing slow, as if calm could shield her. She had learned that fear fed on reaction, and she would not feed it. The Alpha King watched from his place of height, his expression unreadable to him. She was a problem, small, but disruptive, a loose thread in an ordered world. He raised his hand to speak, and the crowd fell silent. That was when the war beast entered the circle. Its presence bent the air and drew every gaze. The ground seemed to harden beneath its weight, and the warriors shifted instinctively, giving it space. The girl felt it before she saw it, the pull in her chest, the sense of being seen without judgment. She did not turn immediately, afraid that sudden movement would mark her as prey. When she finally looked, the beast was already watching her. Its eyes held no rage, no hunger, only a still awareness that made her breath catch. For a moment the world narrowed to the space between them. No command had been given, yet the beast had already noticed what no one else had chosen to see. The war beasts stood unmoving as if the world had paused around it. Noise faded into distance, and even the wind seemed unsure whether to continue. The Alpha King sensed the shift and tightened his stance. This was not how it was meant to be. The beast was trained to wait, to listen to command, to act only when ordered. Yet something had interrupted that chain, and the interruption stood small and thin. In the center of the circle, the beast took a slow step forward, not toward the Alpha King, not toward the elders, but toward the girl. The movement was subtle but unmistakable, and every warrior felt it like a blade drawn halfway from its sheath. A murmur rippled, then died. No one dared speak. The Alpha King opened his mouth to issue a command, but the sound stalled when the beast did not turn back. The girl remained still, heart loud in her ears, yet her feet rooted. She sensed danger but also something else, an echo of familiarity that made no sense. Logic told her to lower her gaze, but instinct lifted her eyes instead. The beast paused again, close enough that she could see the marks of training across its body, scars layered over scars. Each one a lesson written in pain. Its breathing slowed, matching hers for the first time. The Alpha King felt uncertainty sharpen into fear. This was not rebellion. This was recognition, and recognition could not be punished without consequence. The beast lowered its massive head, just enough to break the line of dominance, not submission, not weakness, but acknowledgement, a silent choice made in full view of the pack. Time fractured in that moment. The old rules hesitated. The land itself seemed to lean in, as if listening. The girl did not move. She did not bow. She did not flee. She simply existed, and in that existence, something ancient and undeniable answered back. The war beast held still, waiting, and the pack stood on the edge of a truth none of them were prepared to face. The silence stretched, thin and sharp. No one dared to breathe too deeply. The beast remained lowered, steady as stone, as if the moment itself had weight. The Alpha King felt every eye turned toward him, waiting for command, waiting for correction, but none came. His authority hovered unused for the first time since he had taken the crown. The girl felt the acknowledgement settle over her, not as power but as connection, something seen and returned. She lifted her hand slowly, not to touch but to show she was not afraid. The beast did not flinch. It stayed present, grounded, choosing stillness over violence around them. Belief cracked. Warriors who had faced death now faced uncertainty. Elders who knew every law found none that fit what had been a weapon, had made a choice, and everyone understood that the world had shifted, even if no one yet knew how. The pack stood frozen, caught between instinct and disbelief. No one spoke, because language failed them, and no one moved, because movement felt like betrayal of something unseen. Warriors who had trained beside the beast avoided its gaze. Suddenly, unsure of their place, strength had always been clear-cut dominance, answered by submission, command, followed by obedience. Now the order felt fragile, like ice beneath too much weight. Elders searched their memory for precedent for any story that explained what they had witnessed, but tradition offered only silence. This moment lived outside law, outside teaching. The Alpha King felt the pack shift around him, not away but inward, questioning without words. His rule had never been challenged openly, yet doubt moved faster than rebellion ever could. He realized then that fear alone had held them, and fear could not explain this. The beast finally lifted its head but did not step back. It remained near the girl, a quiet presence that drew a line no one dared cross. Its choice lingered heavy in the air, demanding acknowledgement. The girl became aware of every eye on her, not with hunger or judgment, but with confusion. She had been unseen for so long that being witnessed felt unreal, like stepping into another life. She understood then that the moment was not about punishment or reward. It was about truth surfacing, whether anyone wished for it or not. A low sound moved through the crowd, not a growl, not a word, but recognition. The pack was not united in thought, but they were united in shock. The Alpha King finally lowered his hand, not in defeat, but in restraint. He knew that forcing control now would fracture what remained whole. Silence returned, but it was no longer empty. It was full of consequence, and the pack knew that nothing spoken after this would erase what had already been seen. The girl felt the weight of every gaze pressing against her chest, yet she did not falter. She had spent years learning to be small, invisible, and silent, but the war beast had seen her in a way no one ever had, and it changed something inside her. Her eyes flicked over the pack, noticing the subtle shifts, the way shoulders tensed and claws flexed as if everybody knew they were standing on uncertain ground. She realized that being noticed by the beast was more than acknowledgement. It was a declaration of presence in a world that had never allowed her to exist. The warriors whispered to one another without words, moving like shadows, exchanging warnings, and doubt. Their confidence faltered because the beast did not obey, yet it did not attack. Either choice was missing, leaving them suspended between action and inaction. The Alpha King remained rigid, but inside he felt the stirrings of unease. The girl had done nothing wrong, according to law, but something primal had broken. His command no longer reached where it needed to, and the pack could feel it. The beast did not move closer, but it did not move away. Its gaze remained steady, fixed on the girl, as if measuring her not for weakness but for truth. She held her breath and for the first time considered that maybe she did not have to shrink to survive. The girl raised her hand slowly, a gesture of peace, not submission, and the beast lowered its massive head slightly closer, as if returning the gesture. She sensed a pulse, a silent understanding that she had never known. Around them, the pack could not ignore the unspoken bond forming. They had trained their lives to follow the strongest, and yet the strongest had chosen nothing. The girl had been chosen instead. For a moment, the world contracted to the space between her and the beast, every leaf, every shadow, every heartbeat accentuated by the gravity of the moment. The Alpha King finally exhaled a breath he did not know he was holding, acknowledging that control was slipping through his fingers, and yet he could not bring himself to command the beast away. The girl felt a surge of something she had never allowed herself to feel before, pride perhaps, or recognition, or the quiet certainty that she had finally been seen. The pack shifted uneasily, aware that the order of everything had changed, and that the invisible girl had become the axis upon which their world now trembled. The Alpha King stood taller than anyone else, yet felt smaller than he had ever felt before. His power had always been unquestioned, absolute and unchallenged, but now it wavered like a candle in wind. He could not force the beast to obey, and he could not remove the girl from its notice. The pack waited silently, watching the tension between ruler and creature unfold. They had never seen hesitation in the Alpha King, and now they were forced to feel it. His usual certainty faltered, exposing a gap they had never imagined. The girl did not move. She sensed the fragility of control that had governed the land for so long. She did not smile or boast. She simply existed, calmly strong and aware of the power that had been thrust upon her by something older than law. The war beast remained near her, not as guardian, not as prisoner, but as witness. Its presence was a silent declaration that some choices were beyond command, that recognition was not property to be claimed. The Alpha King clenched his fists and realized that dominance alone could not dictate this outcome. He could demand obedience, but he could not demand loyalty or understanding. The beast had chosen, and his will could not undo it. The pack felt the shift ripple through their ranks. Every warrior, elder, and watcher understood that the balance of power had changed forever. The girl had been acknowledged, and in that acknowledgement the rules had fractured. A new order hung in the air, unspoken yet undeniable. The girl and the beast shared something the Alpha King could not control, and the pack could not ignore. They all knew that nothing would ever return to the way it had been. The Alpha King finally stepped back, his mind heavy with the weight of recognition and the quiet knowledge that power without understanding was fragile and fleeting. The girl walked slowly back toward the edge of the clearing, her steps measured and deliberate. She did not look back at the Alpha King or the pack, but she felt their eyes following her every movement like invisible chains pulling at her. Awareness, the war beast stayed where it was, watching her until she disappeared from sight, its massive body unmoving yet alive, with tension as if every muscle remembered the choice it had made. The pack understood that it had not obeyed command and that it had acted of its own will. Silence settled over the gathering, but it was heavy with meaning, not absence. The Alpha King remained at the center, his hand lowered and his mind racing. The world he had ruled through fear and order had shifted, and he felt the tremor in every instinct. He had relied upon. The pack members began to move slowly, unsure of what to do there. Routines fractured and traditions questioned. They whispered without words, their confidence shaken by a truth they had never anticipated. That a girl could be seen and acknowledged by the most feared creature among them changed everything. The girl returned to her small home at the edge of the land, carrying a weight she did not fully understand, yet feeling something she had never felt before. The knowledge that she had been witnessed, chosen, and acknowledged by something greater than fear filled her with quiet certainty. The war beast remained in the clearing, a silent sentinel. Its eyes followed the girl until the last glimpse of her vanished from view. And only then did it turn back to face the Alpha King, its presence a reminder that the world had shifted, that the invisible had been seen, and that nothing would ever be the same. And in that moment the pack knew that the hierarchy they had relied upon was no longer absolute. The girl had changed the rules without speaking, and the war beast had answered without words, leaving a future uncertain and filled with possibility.